Good morning. This is Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion on this Thursday, kind of a cool gray Thursday morning. Just a couple of days away from the elections. We've got all kinds of different things, catalysts out there that are affecting the markets. And wow, we are headed for one of the worst weeks we've seen in a really long period of time here in the markets, at least. When you look back to Monday and you look over to yesterday, oh my goodness, yesterday, pre-markets, things did not look good. They were definitely getting pounded to the downside. Well, that only extended throughout the day because all three major indices getting affected in a big way. As a matter of fact, the Dow down, for the most part, down about 800 points for the majority of the day. It was underneath that 27,000 level. We were watching the Nasdaq as it very quickly approached 11,000. It was down about 350 points, actually finished down over 425 points yesterday. As a matter of fact, Dow finished down 900 plus points. I think it was about 940 points. You lose track after a while. The movements and the velocity have been absolutely extraordinary. That continues today, some of the velocity of these moves. We'll get into that in a second. Matter of fact, the S&P down about 100 points most of the day, finished off about 119. So a terrible close yesterday when we look at all three of these major indices down about 3% or even maybe a little bit more. We actually did have one Dow stock that decided to stay into the green yesterday, which was absolutely amazing given the fall in the markets across every category you could look at. Travelers actually hung on to being in positive territory. Some of the real big contributors to this push to the downside, I'll give you a couple of those names: Google, Adobe, Nvidia, Zoom, Facebook, all under some huge pressure. Autodesk as well, all down 4.5% or more yesterday. So that was pretty brutal. Add into that UPS, MasterCard, CH Robinson. So across all kinds of different industries as well. Halliburton, add that to the list. All these names down 6.5% or more. So a big thump to the markets yesterday, and it was across just about every single sector you could find. You would find areas that were definitely under some serious pressure, energy being one of those names. Matter of fact, crude down about 5.5% yesterday, trading around that 37 level. It's a little bit worse even today, believe it or not. You had the volatility index with a big spike. Now, one of the things about the spike was we actually finished and closed above 40. Now, that sounds like a terrible thing, and it is, but when you look back in time, you will see that there's a 3-month category. If you settle over 40 on the VIX and you look 3 months out, you can see a pretty nice movement from the markets back to the upside. So just keep track of that as well. And why is that? Well, a lot of the time when you get these moves you see the volatility index get to those levels that I'm talking about here, oftentimes that goes hand in hand with the big slap to the markets, and specifically some of those big names. Well, on that push to the downside, that is oftentimes, and you hear me talk about this a lot of the time, I'm doing less with options during those pushes to the downside and more about stocks, buying stocks using that high implied volatility that absolutely explodes along with that VIX on these downside moves. And you're buying stocks at a discount, but you're also able to sell premiums out of the money that can be pretty extreme. Now, when I do this, it doesn't mean that means it's an absolute perfect strategy, because it's not. The part of the strategy that I didn't include, that I'll include now, is these are quality names. You're looking for the quality names that you liked at the other levels. Then as the stock has gotten pushed lower, now it's trading at a discount. I'm not talking about the high flyers that suddenly just had a couple of days where they've pulled back and yet they're still high flyers. I'm talking about quality names when I'm talking about some of these strategies that I'm looking at least, and personally, and that's how I view the markets that way. Volumes yesterday absolutely exploded. 34.8 million contracts yesterday. Call it 35 million contracts yesterday. A very busy day, and it was a very broad move across, because Apple, it normally trades about 2 million a day. It only actually traded 1.3 million yesterday. Microsoft about 586,000. You had Tesla around 527,000. But there was activity in every single sector, it seemed, and so everything was represented. It was not just isolated to the Power Five, as I like to call it, or the MAGA, whatever you want to call it. It was not just isolated to just a small specific category. This was broad based in terms of some of the volumes we were seeing. And I'll give you a great example of just how perfectly broad and how this thing really did kind of work across all the different sectors about the same. Financials. down about 2.5%. XLE down about 4%. Technology down about 4.25%. You had healthcare down about 3%, a little bit more. You had industrials down a little more than 3%. Utilities was down about 3%. Semiconductors down about 3.25%. You get the idea. So the idea was there was broad selling, no doubt, and it was broad based across so many different sectors. So that's something I think was important because it wasn't just one sector that was pulling us to the downside. It was the combination of all of that, and that's why we'd seen all those major indices moving pretty much in lockstep yesterday throughout the entire session. Now today, little bit of a dislocation in terms of what's working and what's not. We've already watched an incredibly volatile day already. We're only 30 minutes into the trading session. We've already seen the Dow. It started off the day better, and then in the pre-market, it moved all the way to be down 17 points. Quickly, it was down 200 points. Right now, I'm looking at a Dow that's bounced all the way back to, it's actually up 20 points right now. On the other hand, look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ started off pretty strong. It was up about 60 plus points in the pre-market. It pulled back as we were watching the Dow pull back, stayed in positive territory, and now running up about 1%, up at 105 points to the upside in terms of the NASDAQ. So that's a pretty powerful move as well. And that dislocation that I talk about in terms of you see the NASDAQ moving like that, and yet you're seeing the Dow that's basically, call it flat right now, although it has moved into positive territory. We looked at crude early on. It was trading in the 35s, so there was some pressure on again as it was trading in the 37s yesterday. And not too terribly long ago, we were talking about crude in the 40s, low 40s. So that's something. Gold, silver, still a little pressure on those different commodities as well. VIX still trading right now. I'm showing the VIX about 40, well, a little less than 40 now. Now it's trading right around 39. We were trading right around 40 when I first stepped on, but that was also when the Dow was actually still in negative territory, down about 100 points, just, about 5 minutes ago or so. And here it is now up 15 points. eBay got hit early on. That was one of the stocks that was definitely pulling. It was down about 7.5%. Add Zoom and Walgreens and Pepsi to some of those names that were moving to the downside, but a little bit of strength in some of the tech names, and that's why I probably seeing the NASDAQ react the way it is right now, because it's kind of broad-based. We got JD, we got Facebook, we got Apple, Qualcomm, Xilinx, KLAC. We've got semiconductors that are starting to look a little bit better for sure as we start this little bit of a move to the upside after there's been some pressure there as well. So that's something. Now we just got to get to, I got all these other notes, but we got a lot going on. I'll give you one last little tidbit. Got Chevron, you got Merck, you got J&J, you got United Health, you got Travelers. All of those were down about 1.5%. They recovered a little bit, but you can just imagine today's going to be another extremely volatile day. It sure feels like it. It's already had some moves. The velocity of these moves is just extraordinary when you consider where we started, where we pushed down to, where we sent the market even lower, and then rallied all the way back in terms of the Dow. Now we're back negative in the Dow once again. Just minutes ago, I was just telling you about actually that big bounce back, and we were up about 20 points. Now we're down about 5 points. So got some unusual option activity for you. I will be on the halftime report today. I won't be wearing a comfortable shirt like I'm wearing right now. I'll be in the dress shirt, got a tie and everything. I have respect for the system, but so I'll be changing it up. Pinterest. That was the very first name that hit today on the unusual option activity, and that one's one of these names that's worked really, really well for us when we've had unusual option activity. I do have to warn you, this expires tomorrow, October 30th. Yes, Halloween is on Saturday. Today's the 29th. We got the 30th tomorrow. These options expire tomorrow. So this is a 2-day option because they bought them right out of the gate. So you get all of today and tomorrow for these to potentially work. So what were they buying? Well, with the stock trading at about 67 and 35, just a little bit over 67, they were buying 8,000, actually 8,400 of the October 70 calls that expire tomorrow, and they were trading for about $1 to about $2. Now, that's not really the end of it because there was a second trade as well. They bought 7,700 of the 67 strike calls. So they bought the 67 calls, which are in the money because the stock's trading 67.35, as I mentioned. So those are in the money calls. They were buying those 7,700. They also bought the 8,400 of the 70s. So very active buying, and that hit right out of the gate. So is there going to be some big move? Is there going to be some news? Is the catalyst? All those kinds of things. We'll see, but the reality is these have to work in a very short period of time, and I can't stress that enough. We love the business of options. You have to understand all the different elements of options. Theta, time, is what these are working against right now because it's a 2-day option. They expire tomorrow. So understand the options. You better understand the options. The Market Rebellion team, best educators in the business. You will see me on the halftime report today. Hopefully we'll see where these markets are, a little bit more clarity as we get a little bit closer. We know there's a lot of catalysts going on in the markets, getting that much closer to the elections as well. We got the pandemic fears that are going on, and oh, by the way, we got earnings season. So there's a lot going on, and what's going on pandemic-wise in terms of the rest of the globe, particularly Europe right now. All kinds of different news catalysts that are going to be moving these markets around. I'm going to give you one last little update. Dow now up 43 points. I got the NASDAQ up 120 points, and I got the S&P up 20 points. So that's how fast things are moving right now. Folks, have a great day of trading. I'll see you at noon.